Hello everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending upon whenever you are listening to this audio lecture. I hope all of you have understood the concept of previous year and assessment year. And just to put in one sentence, what is previous year? That is the year in which the income has been earned. What is assessment year? That is the year in which the income is taxed. And how the assessment year is coming? Which is nothing but the next year of the previous year. That is the general rule. Now, go back to the image which has been shared with you earlier, where it shows some of the exceptions to this general rule. This has been a very important theory question. Many times it was asked as a theory question. It can be very well asked as a theory question again. But what you should write is not what you are listening now. What you should write is the headings, the side headings, points which have been given in that image, with some minor explanations of one or two lines. Why or how such incomes are not forming part of the regular rule. Why there is a separate type of rule for them, and that explanation should be not on the basis of examples or explanations given to you. So this is what I observed earlier also. Many times when this question has been given, students are writing all the stories which were told to them in the classroom. That is not correct. And those are all only for understanding purposes. Again and again I have to warn you, examples are for understanding purposes. You cannot frame the law taking examples as a basis. Not possible. Law is law. And why we are taking example? Because we can understand the law in an easier manner. Not the opposite way. Examples are part of the law. Law is not part of example. And whatever the examples we are taking, again, only it is going to be useful for understanding the provisions of the law. So keep that in mind. I am warning you in advance, precautionarily, so that you don't get tempted to write the things you listen to. Rather, in the examination, what you have to write is not what you listen to, not what you understand. In fact, what you should write in the examination is what is there in the book. What is there black and white, which is clearly written. Of course, black and white does not mean the color. Whichever is printed, whichever is known, whatever has been written is what you should write in the examination, not what you hear. In simple terminology, what you hear is for your understanding. What you see, what you read is for your marks. There is a difference between these two. Even though you understood something, if you are not able to remember that, if you are not able to reproduce that according to the terminology that has been used in the act, still it is difficult to obtain the marks. So once again I am repeating, income tax is a subject where tremendous memory is required, and just understanding is not enough. Unlike accountancy, unlike costing, it is not only a processor based subject, it is also a hard disk based subject. So keep both of them intact and use them judiciously whenever required. So what you should write, this is what exactly the points you should write when a question has been asked. And what will be the question? What are the exceptions to the general rule that income of the previous year is subjected to tax in the assessment year? So now we very well know that that is the general rule. And what is the general rule? Income of a previous year is assessed in the assessment year following the previous year. That is the general rule. Now what are the exceptions to the general rule? When we say exceptions to the general rule, means in the following cases, income of the previous year is not taxed in the assessment year. Then naturally question comes, what if income of previous year is not taxed in the assessment year? Is it going to be taxed 10 years later? Not like that. Is it going to be taxed 2 years later? Not like that. It is going to be taxed immediately. In other words, the income of the previous year is assessed in the previous year itself. And nobody can say, because of the provisions of the act, income of the previous year is supposed to be assessed in the next year, which we call it assessment year, and all the definitions of previous year and assessment year will bring them. Very good. All those things are good. When? In normal cases. Normal cases are also there in the Income Tax Act only. Exceptions are also there in the Income Tax Act only. So under normal circumstances, everybody follows the same rule. income of the previous year is subjected to tax in the next year, which we call as assessment year. No doubt about it. However, when that rule is violated, and who is violating the rule? Law only is telling violations. Law only is telling exceptions. You cannot create your own exceptions. Whatever exceptions are there in the law, that only we have to follow. So the exceptions now to the general rule are as follows. There are broadly 5 exceptions. That also makes it a very perfect 5 marks question. Again, a theory question rather than a number based question. There is no numbers involved in this type of concept. But theoretically this question can be asked. So what are the incomes in which the general rule does not apply? General rule is income of previous year is assessed in the assessment year. Now the exception is what? Income of the previous year is assessed in the previous year itself immediately. So somebody earned income in the year. In our example like earlier, let us say somebody has earned income in August 2006. August 2006 somebody has earned income, means what will be the previous year? 2006-7. Very good. We know that already. Now what is the assessment year? What is the assessment year? It will not be 2007-8. It will be 2006-7 only. Which means in the following cases, unlike the cases we discussed earlier, in the following cases, assessment year and previous year are one and the same. That is what exceptions mean. Of course, I am not referring to the mistakes that some of you have done, which is not at all generally making any sense. Some of you have written, of course later you rectified, like 2020-20. There is nothing like that. Let us say 2006-06. There is nothing like that. Year cannot be there with both the same numbers. 2007-7. There is nothing like that. So it will be 2007-8. It's okay. 2007-08 makes sense. 2007-07 doesn't make any sense. So that is one of the other mistakes. I'm not talking about that. Same year means not that way. There is that expression of what some of you have done earlier itself is completely wrong. That is not at all acceptable. Now what we are talking about is not that. What we are talking about is, yes, there is a previous year. There is some income earned in that previous year. Imagine, as an example, once again take 2006-07 is the previous year in which the income has been earned, and when that income will be subjected to tax. In the same year means the assessment year also is 2006-07. Of course, not always, not in all cases, only in the following cases of exceptions to the general rule. Again, as I said already, you need to know these names and you need to know the cases of exceptions particularly to write in the examination. However, for understanding purposes, all of them have some common logic. In normal circumstances, if a person is earning income, let us say in some month of the year, suddenly nobody is going to ask tax. First let the year finish, let the 31st March finish, then in the next year the assessment will be done. That's what normally the procedure is. But why there are some exceptions to this general rule? The common point in all these exceptions to the general rule is that if the income of such a person who has earned some income in the previous year is not taxed in the previous year itself, then probably it may be difficult to catch hold of that person in the assessment year. Means we may not be able to track that guy. We may not be able to find that guy. He may vanish. Are you going to write all this in the exam? That is what I was warning you. Never write explanations in the exam. This is for understanding. But that is a logic. In exam you should not write logic. You should write law. Law has to be written in the exam. Logic has to be understood. That's all. Only for understanding purposes. Not for reproduction purposes in the examination. So that's a very important, I would say, precaution I am giving you in advance. And if I still see any of you writing these explanations in the examination, that will be definitely highlighted in a very bad manner. So don't ever write explanations in the exam. Only write the law in the exam. But explanations are required because we should understand the law. How can we understand the law? Normally there may not be any logic. If there is a provision, there may be a logic, there may not be a logic. If there is a logic, it is easier to understand. If there is no logic, all that we have to say is, okay, the law said so. So we have to accept it. Do you have any option? Can you say that, what is this law, sir? This law is ridiculous law. Yes, we know also. So what we can do? We cannot do anything. Once the parliament has passed any act, anything becomes a law, Whether it is right, wrong, fair, unfair, we like it, we don't like it, all these things do not matter. Law is law. As long as it is passed through the parliament, we have to just accept it. That we know. However, if there is a logic behind it, of course the parliament or the people who are preparing the law, we generally just call them lawmakers. They are not fools. They know. They have a logic behind why they are writing such kind of provisions. If we at least try to understand what could be their intention, then it becomes easier for us to remember things. It becomes easier for us to understand the law also. That's what we simply call intent of the statute. Intent of the statute, if we understand, then it becomes easier only to understand the law. Once again, just because you understand the law does not mean you will get more marks. If you have to also remember the law, you have to also apply the law. There is a lot of additional requirements as far as such subjects are concerned. Now, intent of the statute is going behind the lines, behind what has been written on the paper. And we have to actually go into the brains of the people who have written this particular provision. Do we have that facility? Do we have that mechanism? Do we have that scientific technology where we can enter into the brain of another person? Not possible. Not possible. That is the reason why we make a reasonable guesstimate. What could be the reason for this provision? What might have been the reason for this provision? That is what is called intent of the statute. Nobody, no parliamentarian, nor any other lawmaker is going to announce that this is my intent because of which I made this provision. It is not required, and they are not obliged to tell what is their intention behind a statute. A statute will be just passed in the parliament, and it is the people's job or any of the professionals' job to understand what could have been the intention of the statute. Then it becomes easier to understand that statute. Like we are studying Income Tax Act now. What could have been the intention behind these provisions of exceptions to the general rule? If we try to imagine, again nobody told us this, we are trying to imagine what could be the intention. If we do go in that direction thought process, it becomes easier to understand. Again I am warning, understanding purposes only, not for examination purposes. In the examination you have to just write these 5 points, explain them exactly what they are. Dot. That is different. Understanding is different. Now let us understand in which cases the income of a person earned in a previous year is subjected to tax in the previous year itself. That means we are not going to wait till the assessment year. We are doing it immediately. Doing what? Doing it means what? Doing the assessment immediately. Immediately means when? In the previous year itself. And we are not waiting till when? We are not waiting till assessment year, which means what? Previous year and assessment year in the following 5 cases are one and the same. Right? That is, first of all, we should have clarity upon these cases. Now it is easier to understand what are those cases. What are those cases? And what is the common line in between in all of them or most of them is if we don't do it now, means if we don't make an income subjected to tax now, it may be difficult for us to find out the person in future. We may or may not be able to track that person in future. That is the intention behind it. Nobody will tell. Nobody will give you any explanation for this. But intention behind this could be such a reason where it might not be possible for the enforcers of the law, in a simple word, income tax department, to catch hold of these people in the assessment year. And by that time they are already gone. Which means if we wait till assessment year to complete the assessment, in the following cases probably the people might escape the assessment. Again, once again, all these words are might, could have, would have, probably. Then only, that only. Nobody can say somebody will do a crime. The law will not talk in that language. If there is a precaution that a law is taking, why is it taking? It is only taking to prevent a crime, prevent a wrong thing. Crime is a big word if you feel. Prevent a wrong thing, the law is telling something. That does not mean everybody will do wrong things if this provision is not there. Even if one person tries to do that, the law has a responsibility of stopping that person. The law has a responsibility of rectifying that person's mistake. That is why the intention of the law will be always trying to stop people from committing something which is unfair or wrong. Because the law is already there, it doesn't make any difference to the people. So naturally, they have to oblige the law, they have to follow the act, which means once again in the following cases, the income of the people will be subjected to tax in the same year in which it has been earned, which is previous year. Now come to the cases. First case is the shipping business of non-resident. That is the first case. Shipping business of non-resident. We are not talking about resident here. For the obvious reasons, residents of our country or our residents, we can catch them anytime. What about non-resident? Non-resident means, imagine some company having a business of shipping which is from Hong Kong, let us say. From there, it has come to India, it has collected some cargo, and from here, just for example purposes, let us say, it went to, say, England by taking some cargo from India. The company, which is a shipping company based in Hong Kong, is not a resident of India. We are not talking about the individuals here, we are talking about a company. That is in this example, shipping company. The shipping company is not a resident of India because it's not an Indian company. But it has earned income in India. How? By coming to one of our ports. Imagine it came to Chennai and had some cargo loaded into that in India at Chennai. Then it left to London. So, it has earned income in India by taking goods from India, which means there is certain income which has been earned in India. Though it is a non-resident, where from it has earned the income? From India. How do we know it has earned income from India? Because it has come to Indian port. If it just comes to Indian port and leaves, or if it just comes to Indian port and only unloads, there is no income there that is coming from India. But if it is coming to an Indian port and loading the goods and taking somewhere, means what? The freight charges that are going to be paid by somebody from India is going to be the income of that shipping business. This is the general example we are taking. Then what happened? The shipping business of non-resident is taking certain goods from India, and also along with that naturally some money will be earned by that shipping business which has been owned by a non-resident, and they leave India, imagine, normally, under normal circumstances. They earned income in India which is subjected to tax in India, but once the ship has left the Indian port, can we say that we will catch hold of them in the assessment year after 1 year? Now it's only previous year. Let 31st March complete. Next year, assessment year, will ask them to pay tax. Is it going to work like that? Is it correct? Answer is no. That is why it falls under exception. Means what? The business, which is shipping business of a non-resident, has to pay tax on the income earned from such business in the same year in which it has been earned. Immediately it has to get its income assessed. It cannot wait till assessment year to complete the assessment. It has to assess immediately. In fact, you don't need to write this, but only for understanding, they have to pay tax and assessment completed before the ship even leaves the Indian port. This is one of the checklists that the port authorities will ask. If you have earned any income in India, have you paid the income tax or not? You have to pay tax, assessment should be completed, return filed, then go. Otherwise, you cannot leave the port also. The ship cannot leave the port also. That is how stringent the provisions will be of the law. Means, for such categories of shipping business of non-residents, we cannot, means the income tax department or the income tax authorities cannot wait, need not wait till the assessment year. They can complete the assessment immediately in the previous year itself. Means whenever, as and when the income is earned, immediately such income can be subjected to tax. That is one of the exceptions to the general rule, which is shipping business of non-resident. Why is it an exception? Exception because it is first of all non-resident who is earning the income. We might not catch him later. Second is it is shipping business. Ship is not going to stay permanently in India. It will come to Indian port and then leave it. Income tax authorities are not going to have speedboats to chase the ship and collect income tax later. Not possible. Which means before the ship leaves the Indian port itself, all the formalities related to the assessment of such income, payment of tax, all procedures have to be completed. Then only the ship will leave the Indian port. Once again, all the explanation I have given is only for understanding. Don't write any of these things, speedboats, ship will not leave, all this nonsense in the exam. That is only for understanding. What should you write in exam? The heading, shipping business of non-resident. That's what you should explain also. If there is any income earned by shipping business of a non-resident, in such case, the income earned by such shipping business shall be assessed to tax in the year in which such income has been earned. Dot. That is what technically you should write. You should not write any other additional stories in the examination. Understanding is a different story that requires examples, jokes, anything else, but those are not for the purpose of examination. Next, second exception to the general rule is the persons leaving India. And who are these persons leaving India? Every day, now again, don't take lockdown days. You cannot say, sir, anyway, people cannot leave India now. All airports are shut. We are not talking lockdown days. We are talking in general. Under normal circumstances, when a person leaves India, there is no guarantee that he will return back. Who knows that? Intentions. If you ask him, sir, are you going to return back? He may say, oh, very much, next week only I am going to come back. But who knows whether he is going to come back or not. That is why, if the assessing officer is of the opinion, once again, if the assessing officer is of the opinion that a person is leaving India indefinitely, leaving India does not mean somebody going for a tour, somebody going for a business meeting also will be coming under this category. Even then also, if the assessing officer feels that this is a subjective judgment, it is not going to be on the basis of reality. If it is about a feeling. If the assessing officer feels that, if the assessing officer thinks that a person who is leaving India may not come back, assessing officer cannot stop him. Don't think assessing officer is going to stand in the airport and ask everybody to come back and is not going to stop them from boarding the flight, all these things. He is not going to do, definitely not. But what he can do, what power he has is to ask such person, whoever is leaving India, probably indefinitely, to complete the assessment of the income that he has earned before leaving India. Then that person cannot say, sir, just now he is leaving, for example, in September. He cannot say, we are now in September only now. Still March is yet to come. Once the March year gets finished, then the assessment year will come. Then I will talk about assessment. Till that time, don't ask me. Such person cannot say. Because the law is giving power to the assessing officer to assess the income of such person immediately. Nobody can wait, need not wait till the assessment year to complete the assessment. The assessment can be completed immediately. So if any person is expected to be, believed to be, leaving India indefinitely, and who has to believe that? Not you and me, or not the pilot who is taking that flight. Who has to believe that? Assessing officer might have a belief that so-and-so person is leaving India and he doubts that such person might not come back. Then that is enough. That is the power of assessing officer given to him by virtue of this provision. Ki assessing officer can request or ask that individual, whoever is leaving India indefinitely, to complete the assessment and then only go outside. Till that time, he cannot go out. That is the power of the assessing officer. Now already some of you might be already thinking, what is this assessing officer power? How can he stop like that? How can he stop like that? That is the power given by the law. Imagine if you are going in the midnight, not now. Now, even if you go in the daytime also, police are beating. Then you ask a question, who is police and who has given power to the police? Who has given power? Law has given power. So law has given power to police not to beat, but to suspect anybody of doing something wrong and take appropriate action. Same way, assessing officer also is given power by the law to suspect anybody of probably not going to return in future. Then he cannot stop the other person. He cannot punish the other person. He cannot arrest him or do something. Nothing like that. Those are all different stories. Only what he can do, assessing officer, he can ask the SSC to complete his assessment before leaving India. But SSC does not have a defense of saying that, abhi to previous year is not yet completed. How can you ask me for assessment? I will do that in the next year called as assessment year. SC cannot say to the assessing officer, go and read the definition of previous year and assessment year. I know also assessment year comes after previous year. Now we are only just in the previous year. I will pay tax. I will get my assessment done. next year, that is assessment year, such kind of argument SC cannot do. Normally SC can do, but in this case he cannot do. And what kind of SC is that? The one who is expected to leave India indefinitely. And who is expecting that he is going to leave India? SC officer. SC might say, just now I will go today morning and evening I will come back. Doesn't matter. If SC officer thinks he might not come back, then he has the power to use this as a case for exceptional situation. So absolutely it is the SC officer's discretion. But if you understand the difference between the first one and this one and all the other points later is, in case of a ship being not a human being, ship need not be expected to come back or not expected to come back. You cannot ask a ship, Madam ship or Sir ship, sir, are you going to come back? Are you going to be returning to India in future and all? You cannot ask a ship. So it is easier. There we are not going to have any guess, expectation or any judgment, not required. Simply any ship, again, not belonging to a resident, any ship belonging to a non-resident which has earned some income in India will have to pay income tax, will have to get the income assessed in India before even the ship leaves. They cannot argue assessment year is yet to come, because for them previous year and assessment year are one and the same. So there it is not a judgment, it is a fact, because the ship is reality, the earned income is reality, ship leaving the port is reality, and all of them can be just combined. And if you try to look at the bigger picture, definitely the income earned by such shipping business can be subjected to tax immediately. There you can have a checklist also, within which you can include this also as one of the points. Means what? First you pay income tax, first you get your income assessed, then leave my port. That can be told to the ships which are coming to Indian ports for earning some income in India. That is quite possible. There is no judgment involved. More or less it is a procedure already fixed, already in the process of, you can say clearing the departure of ships from ports. We are talking about cargo ships particularly, but not necessarily. Where no difference is made. Shipping business of non-resident is said. That could be anything. It could be a cargo ship or a passenger ship also. But in general, this is what is a procedure that they have to follow before leaving the port itself. They have to get the income earned in India assessed immediately, and if there is any tax to be payable, they have to pay it. Then only they can leave the ship. So here there is no judgment involved. But in the second point and the other points, all of them are judgmental points. Here we are not talking about a ship. We are not talking about some object. We are talking about a human being. And human being, we don't know what he will do. We can come back, he may not come back, he can vanish. We don't know anything about that guy. That is why somebody has to judge him. And who is that guy to judge him? That is a SC officer who has been given a power to judge a person. If at all somebody is leaving India, if the SC officer has an opinion that the same person, whoever is leaving India, might not come back because this person is leaving India indefinitely, according to the opinion of the income tax officer or SC officer, then SC officer can complete the assessment of such person immediately without waiting for assessment year, which means in this case also income of such person earned in the previous year is subjected to tax in the previous year itself. That is one of the exceptions to the general rule. Now, another scenario or a case is that AOP or BOI, means association of persons or body of individuals or artificial juridical person formed for a particular event or purpose. Lot of times it so happens. We can take some examples. Once again, only examples, not to be written in examination. For example, you take Diwali period. During that period, lot of crackers shops we will see. You see all of them throughout the year? Generally no. They will just form a joint venture type, some of the people, or even one person can start a business temporarily doing the crackers business for a period of maximum 1 week to 10 days. That's all. Then it is closed. Are they not making profit? Yes, they are making profit. But after the 1 week, 10 days period is closed, can you catch hold of them? Do you know who is that guy? Is there any establishment for that? Is there any bada registration for that? Income tax department or income tax authorities know who is doing Diwali business, crackers business in which street? Not possible. That's why any business, whether it is formed by an association of persons or a body of individuals or any other artificial juridical person. Artificial juridical person means which is not a natural person. The person whichever is formed by law, juridical or sometimes called judicial. Both are okay. Artificial judicial person, or we can call it artificial juridical person. In both cases, both are same. If they are formed for a temporary purpose, if they are formed for a particular purpose or a particular event, once that event is over, once that purpose is finished, this particular association of persons or body of individual will vanish. So simply to understand, you can refer to your understanding of joint venture. Joint venture, what is the nature of that? Again, I am warning you again and again. Joint venture is an example. Don't write joint venture here in income tax. Here what you should write, what is there on the paper? AOP, association of persons, body of individuals, or any other artificial juridical person who is having a business which is formed for a particular event or purpose. That only you should write. Whatever is there on paper, you should write. Example, what? Joint venture. What is a joint venture? Formed for a temporary purpose. Once that purpose is finished, the joint venture dismantled. In that case also, the assessing officer has a power to assess the income of such organization in the same year, not to wait till assessment year. Once again, the reason is same. Why, sir? Why can't we wait till assessment year? Because if you wait till assessment year, you can't even track them. You can't even know what they are doing, where they are. Lot of times we also see some people coming from some other place, having a 3 days, 4 days exhibition come sale of jewelry, costly saris and all these things in big 5-star hotels and big function halls. We often see these advertisements. They come 4 or 5 days, they earn some income and they go. Where the assessing officer will catch hold of them? How does the assessing officer know what profit they have made in these 4 days? Means a very temporary purpose, a particular event only they have done. After that they vanish. It is difficult to track them and it is not possible for anybody to track these people, and we cannot wait till the assessment year. That is why if assessing officer comes to the knowledge of any such AOP or BOI which is formed for a temporary purpose or for a particular event, then assessing officer has the power to levy the tax, to do the assessment in the same year in which the income is earned, which means in the previous year itself. Once again, don't expect assessing officers will take bikes and go into gully where is a temporary organization and all that. These are the powers of the assessing officer. Assessing officers are not going to sit in the airport and ask everybody, are you coming back, are you coming back? Assessing officer is not going to check for every small business which is formed for temporary purposes. Patang shops or Rakhi shops which are opened temporarily. Don't think income tax officers are going to go around them and collect hafta from them. Nothing like that going to happen. That is not the imagination we should have. We are talking about the power of the assessing officer. When the assessing officer has a power, don't imagine the assessing officer is using that power. He may use that power if he wants. But in general, that is difficult to use the power also. Why? Because we are talking about scattered people. We are talking about scattered businesses. It is almost impossible for the practically assessing officers to trace them. However, that is none of our business. A law should not think about how will the assessing officer know. Is he going to catch the sea in a bike, or is he going to chase him, or is he going to do some action drama in the sea by chasing the boat in a speedboat and all that? Not like that. It is not going to happen. And all of these are only shown in movies. And it is not the assessing officers who do that. It is generally the heroes. Whether that hero is a police officer or a mafia don. Ultimately the action sequences are all shot in the sea or even on the road. That is not what we should imagine when we talk about this. What we have to just simply understand is, yes, a assessing officer has a power. He has a power to do this. Is he going to enforce the power? Is he going to catch hold of the people daily? Of course not. Of course not. So, practical aspects are different. Power is different. Power of a person is different. Whether he is going to implement that power is different. If you think that way, normally also, not only lockdown days, even under normal circumstances, imagine you are just walking on the road in the midnight, maybe after watching a movie, a second show movie, and just coming back, and suddenly police has asked you to show your ID card or something where you can prove your identity. Maybe because of whatever reasons, by mistake, you don't have any of such things. Does police have power to arrest you and take you to the police station on a suspicion that you might be indulging in criminal activity? Absolutely yes. Absolutely, police have the power to suspect anyone and take necessary action. That does not mean you are a criminal. That is the point. That does not mean you are convicted, but that is the power of the police to take action on the basis of suspicion. Both are not same. If police is taking an action on the basis of suspicion, does not make that person a criminal or who is convicted in the eyes of law. However, the police has that power. That's what we have to understand from the legal provisions standpoint. On the other side, are police using that power daily? Daily, that's what they are doing. If they just keep on tracking everybody, whoever is on the road in the midnight, and catch hold of them and putting them in the police stations, do you think our police stations will be enough? Capacity itself is not enough. So that they don't do that because they have the power to suspect anybody does not mean they will suspect everybody. The point is they have the power to suspect anybody, but that does not mean they have to suspect everybody. There is a difference. Same difference applies to SING officers also. A SING officer is not going to stop every passenger going out of India. Definitely no. At the same time, does he have the power? Yes, he has the power to stop somebody who is leaving India if the SING officer thinks that the same person may not come back. That is the power of a SING officer. He uses or does not use is a secondary story. That the law does not mention. That is reality. On the contrary, on the other side, if there is an AOP or BOI or any other artificial juridical person which is formed for a temporary purpose, which is formed for a particular purpose or a particular event, then also a SING officer has the power to make such business subject to tax immediately in the same year, which is previous year, without waiting for the assessment year. Next. Another fourth scenario is another variety scenario. Look at the word itself is very strange. When a person is likely to transfer property to avoid tax. All of them are completely subjective. All of them are judgmental. First of all, he is likely to transfer. He did not do anything also. He is likely to do something. Still you can ask him to get the assessment done. That is first point. Whether he is going to do or not, we don't know. But who knows? A SING officer knows. Does he really know? No. He doesn't know that way. He thinks or he expects or he imagines or he probably goes into the future and he might think that a SING officer has an opinion probably that a person might, likely, probably transfer a property to somebody else. That is first point. Second point is, why is he transferring? To avoid tax. Or how do you know he is going to transfer? We don't know. A SING officer knows. How do we know he is going to transfer the property to avoid tax? We don't know. That also a SING officer knows. Does a SING officer really know? Definitely not. A SING officer thinks that there is a possibility of a transaction to avoid tax. Even then, he can ask the transferor to get the assessment done before even the transfer takes place and definitely before even the assessment year comes, which means once again, assessment is completed in the previous year itself. Looks very weird, but once again we have to only understand from the power of the assessing officer point of view. Don't think that daily these things are all happening. Daily assessing officers are all tracking people. They are only just imagining or who is going to transfer property. Who knows who is going to transfer property? How can anybody enter into the brain of other person? Just impossible. So don't take them too literally. Don't even try to make them in an application-oriented understanding. Never. Only this is the law. This is a power which is given to the assessing officer. If somebody is likely to leave India indefinitely, then that somebody falls under exception. If any business is formed in the form of an AOP or a BOI or artificial juridical person for temporary purpose, for a specific purpose or an event, then such business income can be assessed in the previous year itself without waiting for assessment year. Same way, if the assessing officer is of the opinion that some SSC is likely to transfer the property in order to avoid the tax, even in that case also, the assessing officer might ask the SSC to get the assessment done immediately. Immediately means in the previous year itself. Means the year in which the income is earned and the year in which the income is assessed, both will be same. Both will be previous year only. Again, in the all following 5 cases, what we are discussing now, assessment year, previous year, both are one and the same. That is the fourth point. And the fifth point is logically easy to be understood, discontinued business. Discontinued business means what? Somebody has already a business and he has discontinued. It means that business is stopped. And when is it stopped? In the previous year it has been stopped. Imagine somebody has already a business. He stopped the business in the month of, let us say, October 2019. October 2019, business closed. Done deal. So, can we say we will wait till next year to come and then the assessment will happen? Not necessary. Why? Because once the business is discontinued, same logic. You may or may not be able to track that person in future. It might be difficult to track that person. Once business is discontinued, that person might vanish. And he might not be possible to be tracked also. All these doubts will come. And law will not tell all these things. We are creating all these because of understanding of the intent of the statute. So if a business is discontinued in the previous year, logically, it's very simple that assessment of such business should be done immediately in the previous year itself. You don't need to wait till the assessment year. For example, now, imagine the dates now we are talking. If business has been discontinued on 30th September 2019, what will be the previous year for that particular SSC? Previous year will be 1/4/2019 to 30th September 2019. That is the previous year. Previous year is not a period of 12 months. It is less than that. Then immediately question comes. What is the assessment year for such SSC? This is a discontinued business. Discontinued in September 2019. What is assessment year? Assessment year is also 2019-20 only. It is not the next year. So, normally the previous year and assessment year are different. Since it is falling in the exceptional case, previous year and assessment year are one and the same. That is how the exceptions to the general rule will be there. And these are the key areas that we have to focus on, particularly related to a theory question. What are the exceptions to the general rule that income of previous year is subjected to tax in the assessment year? These are the 5 things that you have to write. 1. Shipping business of non-resident. 2. Persons likely to leave India indefinitely. 3. AOP or BOI or artificial juridical person formed for a temporary purpose or a specific purpose or an event. 4. A person likely to transfer the property for avoiding tax. 5. Discontinued business. These are the exceptions to the general rule.